There are two uses of an apostrophe that your child will need to know about. The first one is an apostrophe for contraction, and that's basically when an apostrophe replaces a missing letter or a group of missing letters. So for example, in the word didn't, that used to be the words did not, and because the letter O has disappeared from the word not, we put the apostrophe in there instead, then combine the two words to make one, and we've got an apostrophe for contraction. However, that's not the one that children find the most challenging. This video is about the possessive apostrophe. So when Trevor owns something, it is Trevor's, and that S does not mean it's a plural. It means whatever's coming up next belongs to Trevor, or something else that I've already mentioned belongs to Trevor. It's all about belonging. Now, the possessive apostrophe should only go with nouns. That's why we don't see an apostrophe in a word like my marker. The word my obviously doesn't get an apostrophe even though it's mine. And that's why words like his or her don't get apostrophes. That seems pretty obvious, but that will help your child understand why its does not get an apostrophe if it doesn't mean it is. If it's this marker has lost its lid, the word it is a pronoun, not an actual noun, and that's why we don't put an apostrophe in the word its for its lid, because we wouldn't use an apostrophe if I said this marker was a boy and he has lost his lid. The word his wouldn't get an apostrophe, so the word its wouldn't get an apostrophe. But this video's about the nouns. I think we confuse kids and ourselves too much by sometimes talking about singulars and plurals for the possessive apostrophe. I don't think there's any need for that. In fact, I think children can learn to accurately use the possessive apostrophe using just 3 steps. And step number 1 is write the name of the owner. Now, the owner might be a person, a character, an animal, something like that, but it can also be an abstract thing. For example, this week could have a menu at school. There could be a menu belonging to this week, and we would say this week's menu. So our owner is this week. And I'm just going to write that here. First of all, to give an example, write the name of the owner, nothing else yet. We could have a plural being the owner. The giraffes could own something. So I just write the name of the owner at the moment, and in this case it's owners. The giraffes own something. We could have the children, which is an example of a plural that doesn't end with the letter S, or we could have a singular that does end with the letter S, and we could talk about the bus. So that's step number 1. Just get your child to think about who owns it or what owns it. What is the owner? Who is the owner? And quite often, the letter S will be missing. Step number 2 is quite simply just take these words and put an apostrophe after them. So write this week with an apostrophe. The giraffes with an apostrophe. The children with an apostrophe. The bus with an apostrophe. And the all-important rule is step number 3. Add the letter S if the owner didn't finish with the letter S. So if I want to say this week's menu, I already know that this week is what owns the menu. So I've got an apostrophe after the K because the apostrophe comes after the name of the owner. The word week does not finish with the letter S. I have to put my S afterwards, and then I can say this week's menu. But if I want to talk about the giraffes next, we know that giraffes, it's a plural owner, so the word giraffes did finish with an S. The apostrophe came after that S, which means we already have an S. We don't need to add another one. In fact, we shouldn't add another one, and then we just write the word next. But children, which is also a plural, doesn't finish with the letter S, but you have written children, then the apostrophe, we must add an S because children doesn't finish with an S, and then we can say the children's book or the children's room or whatever. And then we have the weird one, the word bus, which isn't a hard and fast rule, but if we start to tell children that there are other options for it, it just makes things more confusing, so I think they should keep it simple. We've got the word bus, the bus, which finishes with S. We don't need to add another S, even though when we say it, it sounds like it has another S. And we could say the bus's engine. So we're saying the bus's engine, which definitely sounds like more than one S, but as we write it, we don't have to do that. We could just put an apostrophe after that S and no more S's. And that's why sometimes you'll see names like James or Jess, which finish with an S, and then you'll see an apostrophe and nothing else. It's not wrong to put an extra S after the apostrophe, but if we want to keep things simple, just give these 3 steps to your children. Write the name of the owner, add an apostrophe, and then only add the letter S if the name of the owner didn't finish with an S. And the only reason I told you all that is because I want your money for maths books.